Welcome to this module on NFPA30, the Flammable and Combustible Liquids Code. We begin with two key definitions. First, a control area is a building or a portion of a building where liquids are permitted to be stored, dispersed, and used in quantities that do not exceed the maximum allowable quantity, or MAQ. Second, the maximum allowable quantity as a definition, or MAQ, is the specific quantity of a flammable or combustible liquid permitted within a single control area. Next, we must distinguish between protected and unprotected storage. Protected storage areas have automatic fire protection systems like sprinklers that are designed to prevent fire from spreading beyond a specific area and meet the requirements of Chapter 16. Unprotected storage areas lack such systems, creating risk that a fire could spread uncontrollably. This distinction is critical as it directly impacts the MAQ permitted in a given area. Yes. The flow chart shown in our presentation providing a logical path for determining the requirements for container storage. We start by checking the container size against table 943. If chapter 9 applies, we then ask ourselves, is this a special occupancy? Special occupancies like mercantile operations have their own maximum allowable quantities in table 9621. We then reference table 972 for control area details. If the maximum allowable quantity is not exceeded, there are no additional construction requirements. We are following the flowchart. If it is exceeded, we proceed down the flowchart to consider building construction and sprinkler requirements, including limitations for unprotected warehouses and liquid storage rooms. It is also vital to know the exceptions. Chapter 9 does not apply to liquids in, for example, vehicle fuel tanks, certain consumer products, liquids with no fire point, or water miscible solutions with a flash point above 95 Fahrenheit. Distilled spirits in wooden barrels are covered elsewhere in the code. So we must be very careful with using these flowcharts, but they are there to help us. It is also vital to know the exceptions, as I said. Chapter 9 does not apply to liquids in some areas. Okay, let's expand on some important exemptions. Common consumer products such as medicines, beverages, foodstuffs, and cosmetics are exempt from the general container requirements of section 941 and 943 when they are packed according to commonly accepted retail practices. What can we say? Commonly accepted retail practices. This recognizes that these products are packaged and managed differently from industrial chemicals. These are maybe the packaging is much safer compared to other industrial packaging. Looking back at our flowchart, a critical decision point is the question, does chapter 9 apply? If the answer is no, the flowchart directs us to see other chapters of the NFPA30, specifically chapters 10 through 18, and also NFPA1, the fire code. This is because larger quantities, different container types, or specific storage arrangements like tank storage fall outside the scope of chapter 9 of this code and are governed by more specialized sections of the code. Within a control area, NFPA30 specifies what types of containers are acceptable, primarily detailed in Table 943. This table provides the maximum allowable size for various approved containers. This includes DOT-approved metal cans, drums, portable tanks, and intermediate bulk containers, or shortly IBCs. It also covers certain approved plastic containers, fiber drums, and even glass. A key container for handling smaller quantities is the safety can. Safety cans must be listed, meaning they are certified by a recognized testing laboratory. Their capacity is limited to 2.6 gallons for the most volatile Class 1A liquids and 5.3 gallons for others. They must have a spring closing lid, be designed to safely relieve internal pressure when exposed to fire, and be constructed to minimize leakage if tipped over, making them a vital tool for safe liquid handling. There are two main types of listed safety cans. A type 1 safety can has a single opening or port, which is used for both filling the can and dispensing the liquid. A type 2 safety can has two separate ports, one dedicated for filling and another for dispensing. This two-port design can often provide greater control and reduce spillage during transfer. For larger quantities of containers, we use storage cabinets. A single cabinet cannot exceed 120 gallons in capacity, and the number of cabinets is governed by the maximum allowable quantity for the occupancy. The cabinets have specific performance requirements. They must be able to limit the internal temperature during a fire test, and all joints and seams must remain tight. They can be metal or wood, and new cabinets are required to have self-closing doors. Regarding storage cabinets, there are two common misconceptions. First, grounding the cabinet is not a requirement of NFPA30. Second, ventilating the cabinet is also not required. However, if you choose to ventilate a cabinet, it must be done in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions to maintain its listed integrity. All cabinets must be conspicuously marked with the words "flammable, keep away." Okay? Now let's look at the excerpt from the crucial table 943, which shows maximum container sizes. For example, a metal can for a Class 1A liquid, as you see, is limited to 1.3 gallons, while a metal drum for a Class 1B liquid can be up to 119 gallons. It is important to note the NP, or not permitted designation, in this table. For instance, rigid plastic IBCs are not permitted for Class 1 liquids unless an approved fire protection system is provided and protection against static electricity is in place. Okay? We need to consider the footnotes. Again, we have a slide providing a visual example of acceptable and non-acceptable intermediate bulk containers, or IBCs, for storing Class 1 liquids which have a flash point below 100 Fahrenheit, which is 27 degrees Celsius. The acceptable IBC shown is a metal container. The non-acceptable examples are plastic or plastic-lined containers, which pose a greater risk in a fire unless specific additional fire protection and static control measures, as noted in that previous table, are provided. Let's revisit the flow chart to reinforce the decision-making process. After determining the maximum allowable quantity for our occupancy and control area, if the MAQ is exceeded, we must follow the path to the building construction and sprinkler requirements. This involves checking limitations for unprotected warehouses, the specific rules for liquid storage rooms, and finally the requirements for protected warehouses, which are detailed in tables like 12.8.1 for liquid container combinations. Finally, let's examine the maximum allowable quantities per control area. For general occupancies, these are defined in table 961. For instance, you are permitted 30 gallons of class 1A liquid, 120 gallons combined for class 1B and 1C, and 120 gallons for class 2. Class 3A liquids have a higher MAQ of 330 gallons. These are the examples. It is absolutely essential to review the notes accompanying that tables, as they contain critical modifications and clarifications. Furthermore, specific occupancies have additional requirements. For example, mercantile operations are covered in Chapter 10. Storage protections and height limits are in Chapter 12, and requirements for incidental liquid use in other processes are found in Section 18.5.4. Always cross-reference the base MAQ with these specific chapters. Yes, thank you for your interest in our training. Have a nice day.